Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Hot Topics on the Careful Leadership channel. I am still your regular host, Femi. I'm out here in the park today because it's a beautiful sunny day. It's summertime and I'm just out in the park. And so I just wanted to use the opportunity to share a few thoughts that came to me, especially from questions someone asked. And that person was talking in the light of this recent Supreme Court here ruling in America about the absolute power of the president and immunity to the president and his conduct in the course of office. And so we a conversation ensued, and somebody asked me a question that with all this going on around the world and the point of immigration, people moving and all of that, what is actually the role of immigration in national building? What's so much stress fight about it? We looked at what's going on even in France now. The Marine Le Pen right wing party has just won a significant majority in the European Parliament, and now it is set probably to win a majority to or a commanding share in the French government. The same thing that we're looking at what's going to happen in India and all around the country, and it seems that most democratic institutions, most democratic countries, democracies on the decline, especially with what just happened in Russia, in the US now, which was a big shocker that the Supreme Court will rule in the majority decision of 6-3 that whatever the president does, more or less, that whatever the president does in his official capacity is immune. And this really baffled and surprised a lot of people because we thought America is the bastion of democracy and they hold its president and leaders to account. And so, if the organization can say, if the Supreme Court can say no, the president is immune, then what can stop him? You can as well. I joke with someone. I say, I think, or someone joked and say, hey, I think this is the beginning of Third World War because if the president can be unrestrained in his activities during the course of his presidency and even after leaving office, you cannot be persecuted for that. Then, how is he different from all the leaders of the third world countries or the dictators we've had in the past who just do whatever they want to do while in office? Anyway, we'll look into that, but we'll look more specifically into a topic about immigration and the role of immigration in governance and importance of immigration in governance and leadership. And I just have a few words to share on that. But before we continue, we delve into the matter deeply. Please click the notification icon, like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share. Please share, so that many more people can benefit from the wealth of information and knowledge that we share on this platform. Thank you. Well, today's topic will be the role of immigration in nation building. It's a very short discussion, and I'm just going to go quickly into it and paint two scenarios that all around, from time immemorial, usually God uses immigration as a rule, as a tool for national development. And I will show you. When the children of Israel, when God sent Joseph as was sold into slavery, and he got into the palace of Pharaoh, he worked in his courtyard because of because he was able to provide solutions and interpret the dreams of Pharaoh. Pharaoh, promoted him to a very high-ranking position in his administration. I think was saying someone say prime minister or the second in command. And because of that, Joseph was allowed to bring his people, and the children of Israel were then living in Canaan. They came and they occupied a very special place in Egypt called Goshen, which was lush, green, fertile land because they were farmers and animal rearers. So they got the best of the land, and from there, it was said that the children of Israel multiplied. They multiplied so much after living almost 300 or 400 years there. Generations have passed, and they multiplied. They were strong. They were artisans. They were the scientists of the day. They were everywhere, and they were enterprising. And they were doing very well in the land of Egypt until The Bible records that the Pharaoh that knew Joseph died, and the Pharaoh who knew not Joseph came. This was when Joseph had died, and his generations after him had come. And they knew all the deeds of what Joseph did, how he rescued Egypt, and they didn't know what from what extinction due to the severe famine that came there, and them she told them the solution of what to do, and then they lived through that period of severe famine, or what you can call in today's recession, or global recession, or economic recession. And so there came this Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, who didn't know Joseph, and who was afraid, who was intimidated by the expertise, by the exploits of the Jews, who had virtually dominated everywhere in the land, because they were skillful and they were intelligent, they were smart, they were hardworking, and they were very, very prosperous. Remember the covenant of God on them. And so they flourished. Because of that, Pharaoh issued a decree, and he turned all of them into slaves. And so they became slaves for the Egyptians. And they were in slavery for such a long time. This was to predict what God had said, that they were going to be. I told Abraham that his descendants was going to go to Egypt, and they were going to be in slaves for 400 years. But despite the fact that they were slaves, they were still the one doing all the jobs, the petty jobs, the fetching woods, the cutting of wood, fires, bricklaying, all the jobs that required manual labor, or the low level jobs. The Jews were made to do them because they were slaves. And in some technical areas, which I believe, because of their expertise too, they were also allowed to do it, but as slaves, not as full-fledged and bona fide citizens. And that continued until God sent Moses to deliver them, just about 430 years later. Now, the point here is that they were in slavery for several generations, for a period of 430 years. And so over the years, because they were immigrants, they migrated from Canaan even to Egypt. They became what? Entrepreneurs. They became businessmen. They became scientists, doctors at that time. And so they acquired skills over generations. And you know that the best form of inheritance of what to transfer is the knowledge of what's within you. So there were generations of artisans, generations of medical doctors, generations of engineers, and all that. But they were living in slavery, and they were under pain. They were were working under duress in an uncomfortable manner. But that didn't change the fact that they were skillful. So God had allowed them to acquire the skills. They had worked in a very prosperous nation to understand how a nation, a good nation, a developed nation functions. And so they were working there, acquiring the skills, acquiring the knowledge, and contributing to the development of that society. So they had the skills, they had the technical know-how, physical skills, what it requires for them to build a nation. Now, but they were doing it under slavery, under pain. But when the time came for them to leave, when God was going to deliver them to Israel, through Moses, the Bible records that they left overnight, more or less overnight, because there were several plagues, and by the time the last plague came, all the firstborn of Israel all the firstborn of Egypt died, which represents the economic power, the economic capital of Egypt. They all died because it was the firstborns that would get the inheritance, and so they all died except for those of the Jews, right, who obeyed the instruction of God through Moses. And so the children of Israel are reluctantly allowed to go and leave the land of Egypt to go into the promised land, that is Canaan, where God has promised them. But there was a significant thing that happened, because it happened overnight in a rush. God told the children of Israel to do something, and he also told the Egyptians to, and allowed the Egyptians to do something. He allowed the Egyptians to give them wealth. So he instructed the children, God told the children of Israel to go to their neighbors and ask them and take whatever they needed from them. So God made sure that the Egyptians, because they were tired, they were mourning over their loss, the loss of their children. They were dying. They said, you know what, we just want you to go. We don't want you anymore. You have brought so much pain to us. And so whatever the children of Israel asked them, they even gave them more. They gave them gold, silver, metal, iron, everything they needed. And that was how the children of Israel left with not just intellectual or educational empowerment. Okay, they left with what? Physical wealth, money to build their nation. So at the verge of leaving Egypt slavery to go and build their nation, to start their nation, because they become massive. They become, when Egypt left, Joseph and the children of Israel and children of Jacob left Canaan, they were just a small people. It was just a family. Maybe a few families came with them. But over the years, further immigrants came. Then they built up in that land, and they became strong and powerful and multiplied. They became millions of people. And so by the time they were living with a whole generation, a whole large congregation of people that had skills, that intellectual skills, that had physical skills, that knew how to build a nation, how to develop, how to do agriculture, things they could not have done when they were small but tiny people in that land, in the land of Canaan. But when they were now going back, now they became a very mighty people. They understand transportation system, they understand networking. I'm using them under this palace. But with all the skills they've acquired, they needed finances, they needed economic empowerment, financial empowerment. And that's what God did to them by giving them money in terms of what? Gold and silver that they plundered from the Egyptians. Because there was no way they were going to get, they were slaves, they were not being paid, the rations, they were not paying what was due to them. And so God, in his infinite mercies and his wisdom, caused that pain and caused the Egyptians to release them abundance. And so they had enough money to go into the land where they were going to build their home. They had the skill, they had the technical know-how, they had the knowledge, and they had the finances, the capital, the liquid capital, the assets to build their nation. So immigration is for national building. I've heard people say, "Oh no, don't go." No, it's not like that. Time immemorial. The same way, when they went into captivity, even in Babylon, God told them, "You are going here for 70 years." If you read Jeremiah chapter 29, we always read chapter 29, verse 11. I know the plans I have for you, the plans of good and not of evil, to give you an expected end. That's not even the issue. If you read further up, he told them, "Mark, you are not living here." Even Jeremiah told them before they went into captivity that, "Look, you are going to go to captivity for 70 years. And when they were there, the leader, they had Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even working in the courts of the Babylonian kings. So they had people in place of authority, but they also multiplied. The Bible, Jeremiah chapter 29, made it clear to them that God said, "Look, marry, build homes, have wives, have children, take wives for your sons, take husbands for your daughters, let them have children, because you are not going. You're going to be in captivity for 70 years." And so they were there in the land, even though under slavery, but they were flourishing, they were acquiring skills. And when the 70 years was good enough, our time had come, they were moved to. God released them through evil Merodach and all of that, and the pronouncement of the kings, and I think was it Xerxes, or was it I can't remember the king then, but they were released, and they went in to build their temple. They went to build Jerusalem again, with the skill, with the knowledge, and with the finances they've acquired, because God made sure that, I think it was Cyrus, yes, it was Cyrus that released them. God made sure that they had favor in the eyes of Cyrus. And Cyrus said kings should give them resources. He spoke to leaders of provinces. They gave them everything they needed. So they were remnants of Israel during the Babylonian captivity or invasion. But these ones were not doing well, because he said the land was in tatters. It's the same thing that is going on even in African nations now, especially a country like Nigeria. And I've told them, if you look at the criteria for national building, it's found in Isaiah chapter 58. First, rule of law. The rule of law. And that's why we are surprised that this is Supreme Court ruling now. Because once the rule of law is abolished, then there's no hope for the common man. The number one attribute of God is that he's a God of justice. God is a just God. God is love. That is nature. But his attributes, his characteristics, number one is justice. He's a fair judge. So when you cannot guarantee justice, when you cannot guarantee justice, equity, and fairness, then your nation is about to fail. Then the second one is the issue of workers' compensation and how you treat your workers' welfare. The third criteria for national building is what I call charitable giving. And I've said it before. The reason why America is so strong today, the secret behind the sustenance of America is not its military might, it's not its education, it is in the charitable giving that America gives. There is no other nation that can give America. I'm not talking about the giving of the government. I'm talking about individual Americans themselves. The way they give, the way they help others in need, it just guarantees that nothing, no evil can come near them. I ask people, yes, you say America does a lot of this, they do a lot of crime, they do this. Yeah, you might say so. But I ask you, if you're a father and you have so many children, but one son children is doing well and is bringing money and is helping all of your children and all of that, and you may not like the job he's doing, as long as he's not killing anybody publicly and he's not involved in crime blatantly, will you kill that child when he knows that when he goes to work and brings in money, you may not like his style of bringing money, maybe because he's a capitalist, and people have complained about the capitalism of America. He's a capitalist, he's not a nice person, he's not friendly with money, he has to say all this about America, which is capitalism. But when this guy does his business and does his business fairly, he makes some money, he helps your other brothers, he helps other siblings. It makes life easier for you. As a father, would you want such a child to die? Would you want such a child to be destroyed? Absolutely not. That is why America is still there. Because when they use their capitalism to get resources, they still come out and help other people. And it is the same thing for immigrants coming over to the Western world. You acquire the skill. After acquiring the skill, you now acquire the finances. And that skill and the finances is meant to develop the nation. It is only in Africa that I see people complain and fight against immigration. And look at it. When the Jews were scattered, they went to Europe. Then after a while, they went back to their land. After World War II, the Jews came to Europe. They came to America. They came. It was the migrants there that developed Israel. When the war broke in 19 in the First World War and Second World War, most of those Europeans ran to America. They got the wealth, they built the wealth of America. Now all the money that they did, the skill they did, they want to develop their nation. During the Korea War, it's the same thing. The Koreans came here. They go to Korea now. Where did Samsung come from? Where did Hyundai came from? I remember talking to a veteran, and he was in his 90s. And he went back to after fighting in Korea. He went back there, and when he came back here, he was just crying. He was crying with nostalgia, with sense of patriotism, and saying, "Look at this. When we came here to fight here in our teenage, when I was 18, 19, 20, when I came to fight here, this place was complete jungle. Look at it now. Look at it now. It was those who were liberated, it was the Koreans that were liberated, that came here, that built the wealth, had children here, got the experience, got the money, that went back to build South Korea." The same thing with Vietnam. All around. Why is it now that it's the time of the Africans who have built this country, who even forcefully taken from the beginning of this nation, from the foundation of this nation? Now it's time for the Africans to get the same benefit. Everybody's complaining and everybody's angry. And some Africans who don't understand the importance of immigration are saying, why they should not. Why would they not? Just like the children of Israel. You are meant here to get the skill, get the knowledge, and then acquire enough finances to build the nation. Because there's no doubt about the fact there's global financial meltdown, collapse. And that's why I tell African nations, African leaders who don't care to understand that right now, yes, there's cash crunch everywhere, there's liquidity everywhere. There's a scarcity of liquid assets everywhere. And you cannot build your nation on just borrowing and lending and get yourself in debt. And some nations are servicing their debt with 60%, 70%, 80%, 90% of their GDP. How can it succeed? How can it succeed? The only alternative right now to get liquid access to those countries is what we call through diaspora remittance, through the involvement of those in diaspora in your nation. But it's not just by giving. I see a lot of giving. Oh, people go on social media, people donate money, and yeah, they look at this cause and they donate. No, that's not going to happen. You're just going to be misdirecting the money. Because there are people back home too who in this country say we don't want to work, we just want to live on the largest of people. Though there are those who are in serious need, but there are people who want to live on the largest of the people, and they don't. I mean, yes, and they don't want to do anything. But the best and most constructive way of doing this is for the nation of which, I'll take Nigeria for example, is the nations of this so-called third world or developing countries. We know you cannot do everything. We know you cannot do anything. Of course, we know that most of those leaders are corrupt, so they are just on there for their own interest. A lot of them don't have business in governance. But even at that, let's assume we find a sincere government, a sincere leader, a sincere administration. What you need to do is go and reach out to your citizens in the diaspora and let them form committees. Let them form committees by clans, by hamlets, by community, by local government, and by states. Let them form these groups together and now pool resources together to develop their communities. So if, for example, someone lives in New York, for example, you can, and I've said it before, that the people that has an understanding of this thing well are the Igbos, the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. They understand it a little bit better than, and they do a little bit better than everybody. Get yourself into community groups. Okay, maybe descendants of Umaya Association of New York. You contribute money together. Maybe a little fine, maybe a little okay, maybe $100 per year. That's enough per individual. We say this year we are going to focus on building water, and so everybody in that community who is in diaspora who is old enough to contribute $100, you get $100. You put together. Maybe at the end of the day you get 100,000 US dollars. Converting 100,000 to US dollars. I'm just giving hypothetically. Let's say to construct a borehole in a community is $10,000, or let's say even $1,000. $1,000, $1,000 divided by 100,000. That's 100 boreholes. So you go this year, you plant 100 boreholes in your community. You don't need government support because the government will not do it. Even if they do, even if they have money, you know that the corruption will not allow them to do it. They will still let of money. But the money that the community, individual men in the diaspora contributes together will go there to develop that community. So this year, you take care of borehole. So in the Umaya community, you've sunk 100 borehole. Everybody has water to drink. Nobody can complain. The next year, you take schools. We want to build 2 primary schools. Maybe it's another 100,000 or 100,000. Okay, we'll build 2 primary schools at $50,000 each. You build 2 schools. The third year, we're going to build secondary schools at $50,000. You build 2 secondary schools. Each community will do that. The advantage of this is that it will bring an end to all this agitation. People say, oh, we are being marginalized, we are doing this. No, because your people from your community should be able to gather together and help to build your community. If you are waiting on the government will not do anything. Even when they want to do, you know that 99 out of the 99% of this money will be stolen, and your people are still in poverty. But the immigrant population can come in here according to Isaiah chapter 58. Even from verse 12, it says, your people, those that will be of you, will build the ancient foundation, will repair the broken walls, and they will be known as the restorer of safety to dwellings. It is those that are of you. It's not those that are of them, it's those that are of you. It is your people in the community that will do that. So you align with each community will go that you have at the federal, at the national, and state level, at community level, and you begin to intervene. What you also do is that you create economic empowerment, because, for example, if you sink a borehole One ball might be thinking of one ball maybe for 6 months or 1 year, might employ 5 people. So if you're going to sink 100 borehole in a community, 5 times 100, 500 people has been empowered. They've had money. And there's what you call the principle, the principle of multiplier of money effect. Money multiplies around. So if you send $1, it goes around the community sometimes 5, 6, 7 times, and it multiplies itself. So instead of you now waiting for your cousins or your people back home, they will be asking you to send them handouts, to send them money every day. No, you cannot tell them, look, we are building borehole in our community. They need 5 people. You go there, go and get employed. Don't sit down. Don't get for handouts. Don't wait for handouts. You give to that. You go to the other community too. You give to them. You go to the other neighborhood, and people there, everybody, young men there, can get work. While you are building building the boreholes, there will be suppliers of materials in there. There's a form of economic empowerment. There will be people around there who wants to sell food. People will get to buy food and eat. You are empowering people, and your community is developing, and there's money in that community and developing. And that's how it goes. So in leadership, in nation building, that like I've said earlier, we'll look at restoration of justice, or bring about an effective justice system, equity, justice, and fairness, judicial reform. Then you look at what? Workers' welfare and workers' compensation. Then you look at charitable giving. But charitable giving in form of community development. You have to get the people involved. But those that can really do it are those immigrant population. Because I've shown you the example, it was not the Canaanites living, or the Israelites or descendants of Jacob, Abraham living in Canaan that built Israel. It was those who were in Egypt that moved there, they took over the land and they built. How could they have built if they didn't have any experience of building? Even though they were in something, they went into the most advanced nation as at that time and they built. The same thing when it was coming, when they were in Egypt, when they were in captivity in Babylon. God knew that, and God took them to Babylon, under captivity, to experience the modern technology, modern techniques of doing things, and to get the finance, to get the commerce, they were the center of the world. Egypt was the center of the world power then, and influence. The same thing was Babylon. They had the very best, and so they were able to come down to their own nation and to replicate what they've seen, what they've had was on them, both skills and finances. It's the same way, and this goes out to all the African leaders. That if you're thinking that, you're going to continue to borrow money or going to continue to get handouts from foreign nations, it's not going to go anywhere. You can see what's going on now. All these Western nations now, having used cheap labor, slave labor, are turning their backs on you. They're saying no. When it's time for Africans now to not really claim it, they're saying no. They are restricting it. And so you cannot even borrow money, because even IMF and all the what it does today are all cash crunch. They're short of cash. There's no foreign. There's war going around everywhere, and people are complaining. Nations are complaining. And now, again, with the Supreme Court law, a new president can come in America and say, you know what, I don't want to deal with Africans. I don't want no support anywhere. We are closing shop. We are closing all our policy, and there's nothing anybody can do because it's immune. And look at all the right-wing parties. And whose motto is anti-immigration. Look at what they are doing around the world, and they are taking over all the countries of Western Europe. We don't know what will happen in England, but we've seen the sign in France, we've seen the sign in Germany, we've seen the sign in Belgium, we've seen the sign in Italy, all around. So right now, immigration and the immigrant population, the diasporans, is still the best chance for the so-called global south to have a minimal chance at development. And so God is never against immigration at all. God supports it, God uses it, it's a tool God uses for national building, especially if there's a new nation, or a nation like most of the third world, especially Nigeria, that is trying to come out of the ashes of great disrepair. So the immigration is very, very essential for nation building. It's a very, very strong tool for both economic, financial, intellectual, political, and spiritual empowerment. It is.